There is little difference between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party when it comes to the likely Brexit deal that Britain might agree with the European Union over the next 2 months. They both support the idea of Britain being tied into the customs union, either for a long period with the Conservatives or indefinitely in the case of the Labour Party. But it's this idea of the customs union that really lies at the core of the problem that the left and Greens have and should have with any transition deal with the European Union under these circumstances. You see, the customs union isn't really anything analogous to a trades union. It is simply a way of enforcing European Union regulations, tax rates, tariffs, tax policy and protectionism on the British economy after the 29th of March. The paradox is that although there is a lot of fighting between the two major parties, actually they fundamentally agree. Neither of them want to use the trade power that the British electorate gave to the Commons, gave to Parliament back in 2016. The Leave vote is not being used properly because, at the end of the day, the customs union in any shape or form is a bad deal. It's not just a matter of May's bargain on the backstop. You see, the backstop could end up being diluted in a forthcoming offer from the government to the Commons to try and ram it through. For example, then maybe yet another side agreement to say that neither of the parties want to impose the backstop in the short term. There might be a deal to even strip it out entirely. No, the customs union will still remain, and it's the customs union that is, I think, our key problem. You see, the customs union enforces on Britain a standard European Union view of how taxation, indirect taxation, and tariffs should work. And these are major taxes. For many long years, Britain's Greens and those of us that are on the left have long opposed these forms of indirect taxation. They're very regressive and highly arbitrary. They are protectionist in the worst possible sense. They, for example, act as a pact against trading with the developing world. They also bind us to this common rule book, and the common rule book is a very concrete reason why other countries outside the European Union will not want to sign trade treaties with Britain after the customs union is enforced on us. The reason is that their goods would not be regarded as being suitable for sale in the UK if they did not meet European Union standards. And of course, Britain would have no power to change those common regulatory standards. It's also tied to a colossal amount of money. What is the point of paying £39 billion to the European Union Commission? Is it simply to keep them sweet over the 21-month period of the transitional arrangement? And we have got no promises that at the end of this we will end up with a trade agreement of any sort, let alone a free trade agreement. The European Union is famous for its lethargy. We are very unlikely to get something meaningful in that time. £39 billion is a colossal amount of money. It is equivalent to £1,300 for each of Britain's 30 million taxpayers. And taxpayers in this country aren't necessarily UK citizens. They may not be entitled to a vote. That is very clearly taxation without representation. £1,300 per taxpayer. We're not compelled to pay it. This was the subject of research done by the House of Lords, which found that while we might need to go to our international arbitration, it's very unlikely we would have to pay any of this 39 billion, certainly nothing like the scale of payment that's envisaged. And this is, as I say, an amazing amount of money. It's equivalent over the 21-month period of the transitional period, essentially the same as our defence budget. We would never give away this amount of money without proper oversight by the Commons. It's protecting our market against people that want to trade with us, that want to be able to find that same route to prosperity that Britain found in the past through trade. And who are we to deny them access to the UK market, particularly for things that we don't actually produce ourselves and they produce in abundance? It's also potentially tying us through the customs union and common policies to the European Union's Eurozone, the single currency, which has threats coming left, right and centre, particularly from the south through mass youth unemployment that is creating huge protest parties that are demolishing the established political parties of the south and the east of the EU. It's also tying us to potential banking failures in the richer northern countries of the European Union. But most of all, the thing that surprises me is the sheer gutlessness of the Commons. Parliament should assert itself. It was given the power to do so in 2016. These trade treaties are incredibly powerful documents. They, for example, can set things like sustainability and human rights in developing countries, possibilities of visiting and tourist visas and other visas and migration. We have spent years fighting against TTIP and similar treaties which embody mechanisms such as the investor state dispute mechanism, which could potentially be used to privatise British public services. These are very powerful treaties. These should be accountable. When they're signed on behalf of Britain, they should be accountable back to the Commons, back to Parliament. I want to see tariff rates and VAT policies determined and set by reference to committee reports inside the House of Commons Select Committee and other committee processes. We did not spend all of those years fighting international trade treaties that were going to be signed on our behalf, such as the TTIP treaty, only to see an equivalent, authoritarian customs pact enforced on this country. Despite the gutlessness of our current House of Commons, I want to see the customs union, the customs pact and its protectionism and its huge cost. I want to see those eliminated. I want to see them defeated. I want us to leave with no deal rather than these bad deals that the government and the European Union keep fobbing us off with.